So hello guys, good evening to all of you.
Hi Venkat.
Hi. So I assume that the demo session is helpful for you to understand what is an SAP BODS. So what is the SAP's the BI strategy in terms of dividing the number of products into SAP BI and EAM, Enterprise Information Management Services. And so how actually the SAP BODS is providing the data integration and the data quality purposes, and what are all the prerequisites to have an SAP BODS. So that is what actually we have discussed in the previous session. In today's session, we will directly jump onto the tool and we will try to understand what are all the components that gets installed whenever we are going to install an SAP BODS. So that is what we will try to understand in today's session. So any questions in the previous session before I start for today's session?
One question I have is, Venkat, what about the materials? The materials should be, how can we download the materials?
Okay, the material also will be uploaded to the training blog, and from there you can download it.
Okay. But right now there is no materials for today's class, right?
Right.
Just
yeah. So right away after the session, I'm going to upload whatever the materials I have. You can download and you can proceed from there.
Okay. It would be nice if you can download it before the class so that we can make some notes, since you said it is PDF.
Sure, definitely. So I have to send it everything, what are the server and all and everything. So along with that, after the session, surely I will try to have it upload into the training blog. So now let me continue. Let me share my screen actually.
Thank you.
I hope you are able to see my screen.
Yep.
So
introduction to data
now
services.
we are trying to understand. Yeah. Now we are trying to understand here the introduction to data services actually. So when I say introduction to data services, so as I mentioned previously, so data services is an ETL tool, of course, like other ETL tools in the market, where they are going to do an activity of an explore, transformation, and movement anywhere at any frequency. But the data services is very popular from the batch job standpoint. When I say batch job, so the BODS is able to load the millions of records in a batches. I mean to say maybe daily once, maybe weekly once, maybe every 1 hour. As a batch of records, it can load from source to the target. That is what actually meant by batch of records. The BODS is very popular as a batch of records. Rather than one record at a time, the BODS, the functionality is very popular in the market as a batch job, as a batch records processing. So that's the reason why it got extreme scalability. It got a maximized developer productivity. So it is very flexible, the tool, when compared to other ETL tools in the market. If you are an SAP BW consultant, so after this course, you will like the BODS very much, because there is no complex coding what you need to do in BW. That complex coding is not at all required in SAP BODS. So similarly, it is very easy to install, and very easily we can distribute the resources across the different physical systems. So that's what it says, that we can have an extreme scalability, we can have a maximized developer productivity, and we can have a very good control over the system. When I say control over the systems, we can audit the system very easily. So all these things matters whenever we are going to consider an ETL tool. Of course, you guys know that, being a real-time experts. So the ETL tool, where it has to explore, when I say explore, it has to explore the metadata while connecting to the source system. It has to transform the data as the business logic. It has to load the data at any frequency. Any frequency means that can be daily load, that can be weekly load, or monthly load, or yearly load, something like that. So all these things matters whenever we are going to consider any particular as an ETL tool. That can be BODS, or that can be an SAP BW, or that can be Informatica, that can be data stage, or that can be what you call as the ETL tool from Microsoft, ETL tool from Oracle, and XYZ. So this is what actually the SAP data services landscape, where actually it will fit into. So I'm not sure. So in your company, so you already have a SAP Business Objects installed or not? Can I get an answer from anybody whether you have a Business Objects installed by chance, if you know already your landscape?
Venkat, this is Chandra. Yes, it has been installed in our landscape.
Okay, great. So I know that, so most of the guys know how actually your landscape is designed. So it is very, very important. Maybe I will recap once again for 5 minutes. So how, if you have a business objects installed, then what are all the components that you are going to get in general? So that is a very important point to consider. So if you have installed an SAP Business Object, so SAP BOBI platform, this is what actually you might have installed in your landscape. So what are all the different products that you will be able to get with the BIBO platform? So that is a very, very important point to consider here. The important point would be like you will be getting a lot more components. So what are all the components you will be getting it? So that is a very, very important point here. So you will be getting a lot of client, you will be getting a lot of the servers, and etc. So what are the components you will be getting from the server standpoint? I'm not going to have, or I'm not going to illustrate each and everything, so because you already know that. So from SAP BIBO platform standpoint, so you might have got a lot more. So a lot more means you might have got so maybe rich client. That is what one tool you might got it. So you also got like something called as an IDT. You got something called as an UDT. You got something called as what else do you have? So you have an upgrade management tool, and you also have something called as
Lumira.
Right, of course. This is not a part of an SAP BIBO platform installation, but yeah. So as a part of an SAP BIBO suite, so you can have Lumira, yes. You can have a dashboards, and etc. These are all the components you got it from the a desktop standpoint. So what are all the components you got from the server standpoint, can you tell me what are all the components you got it? So maybe have a recap. So what are all the components you got? Server components. I'm interested in the server components. I mean to say where you can operate from your web application or web interface. You need to have a link so that you should be able to access the link wherever you are in the network. Something called as CMC, something called as an info view, something called as web intelligence. What else do you have? You have something called as, can you list out some more server components you're going to get whenever you're going to install an SAP BIBO platform?
To tell you frankly, Venkat, we don't have any clue. Basis administrator installed it, so we don't know what components they installed.
Great. Not a problem. So these are all the client components. So I have mentioned in the above box. In the below box, these are all the different things we have. Something called as SAP BOBI Explorer. I will show you everything actually, because it is also very important actually what exactly you're going to get with the installation of a BIBO, and what are all the components from the SAP BIBO will helpful in order to proceed with your SAP BODS. So that is very important. And so what else we have? We also have something called as
OLAP,
Sorry?
BOX. The server components are like OLAP, Explorer, Crystal.
Right, OLAP analysis, and we also have something called as an Office analysis. Yeah, Microsoft MS Office analysis. And in your landscape, you also have an SAP HANA.
To some clients, yes.
Okay, great. So we will also see that. So how the connectivity to the BODS and all, etc. So now these are all the components that gets installed whenever you are going to install an SAP BIBO platform. And out of that, this CMC is very, very important. So how actually the CMC is very important, that we will see now. The CMC is very important from the component standpoint. The CMC is, why the CMC is important? So that is what actually we have to understand here. The CMC is important here. So from the component standpoint, and also we have to understand the CMC. The CMC. Now the CMC is an important component that we have to understand here. So can you tell me what is CMC means? This is the Central Management Console. The Central Management Console is a component that you are going to get with the installation of SAP BOBI platform. This is one of the very, very important an administration tool. It is very, very important. It's an administration tool, and it is a web interface actually. Web interface. And so with this particular Central Management Console, you are going to do a lot of content management. You will do security management. You can do a lot of distribution of your content. So all these different things are possible with the Central Management Console. So I will show you where actually the Central Management Console will be useful or helpful for you. So let me log into the server. So let me show you what are all the components that you are able to see whenever you are going to install an SAP BIBO platform 4.1. Now I'm trying to connect to the server where we have installed this CMC or SAP BIBO platform 4.1. Yeah. So if I go to the start programs, I could able to see that there is one a name called SAP Business Intelligence. In the SAP Business Intelligence, whatever the tools that you have mentioned here, see here, Web Intelligence Rich Client, Universe Design Tool, the Translation Management Tool, Report Conversion Tool, and Query as Web Service. These are all the client components that gets installed on your system whenever the SAP BI/BO platform is installed as a client component. From the server standpoint, I mean it's a server component standpoint. So this is what, see here, the central management console. Actually, this will be appear in the start menu, but as a like the flexibility standpoint, we have made it as a shortcut on the desktop. That's the only thing. So this is one of the very important tools that gets installed, SAP Business Objects BI Central Management Console. If I double click on this, so it will show you the Central Management Console. So whenever you are going to install an SAP BI/BO platform, this is the first tool where you are going to log in and you are going to verify whether I have any users and groups that are defined and what is the license I have to add it here. See here, the license is something like how many users I have, what type of license it is, what is an expiry date of this particular license. So all these things that you will be able to understand in this particular Central Management Console. The Central Management Console plays a very, very important role. So you know that any particular product that SAP BO is releasing nowadays, so all the products administration has to be done from the SAP BI/BO, the Central Management Console. So in that way, the Central Management Console a major or a vital role. And apart from that, as I mentioned previously, the SAP BI/BO also will give you a lot of reporting tools. I mean to say in the web interface. See here, I have something called as SAP BI Launchpad. This is the tool actually where it is going to give you a lot of components like an SAP BI/BO module, SAP Analysis Edition for OLAP, similarly Information Steward. Similarly, it will also give you the Crystal Report for Enterprise. It will give you something called as BI Workspace. It is give you like the Web Intelligence, something like that. So these are all the like the different the tools. From the reporting standpoint, it will help you. So each and every tool, it has its own flexibility, it has its own functionality. Okay, this is from the reporting standpoint. So if you want to do a analysis or if you want to do a reporting on your OLAP sources, when I say OLAP sources, it is all your BEX queries, all your see here, these are all the BEX queries we have. So how actually you're going to create a OLAP sources analysis. So all these things that you will be able to understand here. So if it is a web intelligence is a self-service tool. In previous session, I think I have told you so very important point. So this is a very important point here. So where actually your the Central Management Console will be fit into. If you are doing reporting, or else if you are doing the dashboards and visualization, or else interactive analysis or advanced analysis or predictive analytics and data exploration, whatever may be the reporting structure that you want to build, or whatever may be the enterprise information management technology that you want to go for, whether it is master data management or data quality, text analytics, or our the data integration and federation and metadata management, whatever may be the process that you are trying to proceed with, all these processes and all these reporting structures can be maintained with a single common management that is called as an administration console. That administration console is nothing but Central Management Console. where the central management console will manage the security, storage, scheduling bursting the reports to the end users, and the systems management. So all these things, management of all the tools from EIM, from the business intelligence standpoint, everything will be maintained with a single window called common management. The common management is nothing but a central management console. The central management console plays a very, very important role in each and every industry. So how and when it has to be installed, that is also plays a vital role. So now till now, so we have discussed that. So in order to access your data services, we need to have a central management console component. So in order to have a central management console component, either you have to install an SAP BI/BO platform. But I have a doubt, guys. So what happens if my company don't want to go for a business objects? I mean to say from the reporting standpoint, I don't want to go for a reporting. Let us take an example with the business objects, company or business objects tool. I have a Cognos, I can go for it. I have some other tools like MicroStrategy, I have some other Oracle tools, I have some other Microsoft tools we have. But if I don't want to use a BI/BO platform, how can I get a central management console? Where the central management console is very, very important if I have to access or if I have to use the data services. Do you have any clue, guys? Any guesses? Should be fine. Any guesses should be fine. So how actually you are going to get a central management console? Okay, not a problem. Mainly the central management console, what I mentioned previously, the central management console, we can get the central management console, we can get the CMC by two ways actually. One is with the installation of SAP BOBI platform, or else installation of SAP Information Platform Services. Either one you need to have. So two things are you have to remember always. So what is the landscape in your company? So what is the landscape? What is the landscape you have in your company is very, very important. So when I say landscape, I am referring to, let us take an example that if your landscape, if your company is decided to go for an SAP BI/BO platform for the reporting solutions, then normally you will get a CMC for SAP BI/BO platform, and with that CMC you will maintain everything. And anyway we have an SAP BI/BO platform. On the other hand, we can install a data services. Then the data services needs a CMC. That is one point. What happens if my company doesn't go for the BI/BO platform? In that point, in order to get only CMC component, we have to install an IPS, Information Platform Services. Where if you install that, so it will give you the CMC component. So that is a very, very important point. So as a whole, if you have a, let me type it here. So if you have an SAP BI platform, so it will give you something called as CMC, Web Intelligence. We have something called as UDT, IDT, Explorer. So we also have something called as an OLAP analysis, something called as MS Office analysis. So what we have, something called as rich client, the crystal reports. Okay, if you install Lumira, you will get everything. Something called as Design Studio. So you will also require something called as the dashboards. These are all for the companies who wants to make use of a potentiality of the SAP BI platform. Okay, so on the other hand, data services needs a CMC. You can get a CMC component from the SAP BI platform because that is already installed in your landscape. So similarly, if I get an IPS, if I install information platform services actually. So what it is going to give you? It is going to give you something called as CMC. That's it. This is a very important point. So either you need to have an SAP BI platform plus data services in your landscape, or you need to have an IPS plus data services. So this is very important point to consider. You got my point, guys? Do you have any questions in that? Can I proceed? Just type yes in your chat box so that I will be getting some signal so that I can proceed further.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So these are all the points we need to consider. So from the landscape standpoint, so this is what actually happens here from the data services standpoint. So now till now we have understand that, so we need to have a CMC component. The CMC component will help you to log into the data services, and the CMC components can be achieved, or we can get a CMC component from the IPS or from the SAP BI platform. So that is what we have learned till now. And so as I mentioned previously, this is the architecture of an SAP BO data services. So what are all the tools we need to have and what it can communicate? What are all the different projects we have? So all these things that will be explained you this diagram very clearly. So what it can do, what are all the projects the SAP BO data services architecture will support. Each and everything I think it has mentioned here. And this will gives you the what are all the components like the data services can communicate and can load it into the target systems. We have something called as original raw data. So we have something called as an extracts, the transform the data, load the data into properly structured format, and this is from the data quality management standpoint. So before the proceeding into an actual technical architecture of an SAP BODS, now, so we log into the server. This is the server actually. This particular, the server, so will have a scenario of See here, in my landscape, I already have an SAP BABO platform. These are all the tools we have. And apart from that, on the same system, because these are all the demo systems, I have something called as an SAP Data Services 4.2. This SAP Data Services 4.2 will gives you the components of Data Services Designer, and it will also give you something called a Data Services Local Selector, Data Services Repository Manager, Data Services Server Manager, Data Services Workbench, of course the License Manager. And apart from that, it will also give you the Data Services Management Console. So that I have mentioned as a shortcut on the screen, Data Services Management Console. Now, what are all the components that we are going to get? So that is also very important points to understand here. So the important points to consider here would be the components. The components of an SAP BABO platform, or we have seen till now. Now we will see the components of the data services. What are all the components that you will be getting it? So one is called as an, of course, so BODS Designer. And the second one is something called as a Server Manager. And the third one is something called as Repository Manager. And the fourth one would be something called as Workbench. And the fifth one would be something called as a License Manager. And of course, we have something called a Translation Manager. That is not that important. So if you are working in multiple languages, then normally the Translation Manager will be helpful. And similarly, we also have something called as Data Services Management Console. So all these things are will get installed on your system. It depends upon your requirements. So either you can install all these components on the same system, and so we can also have something called as we can distribute these components across the different landscapes. So all these things depends upon your landscape. So how you want to do on everything. So we will see the brief introduction of each and every tool, what it is and how it will be useful for us. So we have something called as an ETL tool, right? So the BODS Designer will help us to proceed with the activity of an ETL, the extraction, the transformation, and loading. We can do an extraction, transformation, and loading with the help of a SAP BODS Designer. So what we are going to get here? So with the help of a ETL tool, of course, you know that. So with the help of an ETL tool, we can create something called some projects. We can create something called as some workflow. We can create something called as some data flow. So we can create something called as jobs we can create. So all these things that you will be able to create, and in fact we will spend 90% of our time on the data services designer actually. That is one thing. And the server manager. The server manager, where the server manager will help us in defining the server, something called a job server. And so this job server is used to execute your jobs. So once you execute the job in the BODS Designer, what actually you are going to do? you are going to simply map the source with the targets and you are going to write some transformations or the business logic. But in order to make that transformation should happen, in order to make that mappings to function correctly, you need to have a server that is called the job server or an access server and an access server. So these two are a very important servers where these will release so a process is called al_engines.exes. So these exes will helpful in order to run the job so that the source and the target will get connected and the data will flown from source to the target via an SAP BODS. So that is what actually happens here. That is what called the server manager. And so once we have gone through the server manager and all, we have something called as a repository manager. The repository manager will help you to set up different types of repositories, local repository. We have something called as the central repository. We have something called as the profiler repository. So these are all the repositories. So you are going to create with the help of a repository manager as and when required. So the local repository is local to user. So for each and every user, let us take an example that in your projects, if you have a like 10-member team is working, so each and every user will have or she will have so its own local repository. So that is what actually happens here. Okay. So anybody has any questions? I see that somebody has raised the hand.
Hey Venkat, this is Chandra. When you
Yes,
say local
please.
repository, so the PCs also should have like a SQL server or something where the system stores the metadata or the packages, whatever you want to call them.
Very good point you have raised it. Local repository is nothing but the specific to the developer. That is what the name comes as a local repository. So let us take an example that you have a SQL server. In order to communicate with the SQL server, which doesn't require a SQL server should be installed. Of course, you know that. So we need to have only ODBC drivers enough to communicate. So on your PC, it is sufficient to have ODBC drivers so that you can connect to the SQL server. That should be fine. But the name local repository addresses that each and every developer in a project should have its own private repository. So that is what actually meant by the local repository means. I will describe more on this. Okay? Okay. So not a problem. Yeah. In fact, so you have raised a point where the local repository is the first step. Once to install an SAP BODS, the local repository creation is a very, very first step. You have to proceed. There are like a lot of 5 or 6 steps are there. Those 5 or 6 steps needs to be followed in order to register your local repository. There are like 5 or 6 steps. We will see that. Not a problem. So local repository is local to the developer, or so I can say that developer would be an appropriate word. Similarly, the central repository. Central repository means share the task, version management of your task. So all these things are possible here. Similarly, we have something called a profiler repository. The profiler repository means we know that. The profiling means to know more about your data. When I say more about your data, so we know that how many percentage of null values we have. So out of 1 million records, if you have, like 5 or 6 lakhs of records are having some null values, there is no point of proceeding with an ETL project. So all these different, the metadata statistics can be get from this particular profiler repository. So all these things are very much important from the repository manager. And when it comes to the workbench, so the SAP has introduced this particular workbench starting from the, you can say that the 4.0 onwards. So, but that is very, very pilot version. So from 4.1, you can see the more activity from the workbench actually. So workbench is more like a replication actually. So mass replication, you can say that. Mass replication of tables. That tables can be an SAP tables, or that can be like something like Oracle tables. SAP tables means, I mean to say SAP application tables. Something like that. So there are some scenarios where, like once SAP has introduced on SAP HANA, we learn that there are some replication tools required like SLT, DXC, replication methodologies, I mean to say, like an SAP BODS. These are all the methodologies are very much required if you want to proceed with an activity of the mass replication of the data. So in order to facilitate only those, the replication of the tables, so we need to have a specific tool actually for that. So for that they have released something called as workbench. So we will take up a very simple scenario. So how to make use of a workbench and how it will helpful for us. In general, we don't use the workbench in general. But like from 4.2 onwards, we started using it actually, because especially in a projects where the HANA is there, so we have to replicate a lot of tables in an SAP HANA where we have to do some modeling. So for that particular purpose, we need to have a mass replication of tables. If you have a 50 tables, so instead of creation of data flow for each and every table, and for each and every data flow, if you have to specify or associate with one job, it is a waste of time. So that's the reason why the mass replication of 50 tables, 100 tables at a time, we can proceed with the workbench. So that is what actually happens with the workbench actually. When I say license manager, so license manager means to add a license on your system, that's it. Add the license. Add the license means you can, if I go to the license manager here on my system, start here license manager. It will show us the window of what is the license I have and how many days before it has to expire and all and everything. If I go to the repository manager, see here in the repository manager, I can create local, central, and profiler. On the databases like the SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle, SAP HANA, SQL Anywhere, and Sybase, something like that. If I go to something called as server manager, so these are all the servers actually. These are all the servers running on the each and every port, 3509, 3500, 3559, something like that. So all these servers are very much required if you want to proceed with the execution of your job. Similarly, like I need to have an access server. Access server is required if you want to do a real-time job. And so earlier I told you that BODS is very popular for its batch processing. And in BODS, we can also perform a real-time job also. When I say real-time job, the request and response we will discuss later on whenever we discuss or whenever we jump onto an SAP BODS designer. This is all about data services server manager. So we have something called as locale selector. That is what I'm referring to translation manager. This is what. See here, user interface and output logs. The product locale. So what you want to have. Because while doing the installation, so I have just mentioned English. That's the reason why it is showing as a product locale, something like this. So what you need to have, viewing locale. This is a product locale. So what you need to have, you need to have the different the screens you have instead of main menu, the name you need to have in a French language, German language, what needs to have instead of English log. If you want to have something else, then that will also will be useful while doing the installation itself. So similarly, what is the language you want to follow for the locale language and the territory, what you need to have, what is the code page you need to have. So all these things that you can set up with the data services locale selector on your physical system. That is what actually says that. This particular component will be installed on all the physical systems of the developers. So where you can install, where you can like change the screens, change the menu buttons names in the French language and all and everything. So that is what actually happens, the data services locale selector. And also now we are discussing the last one. So that is the data services management console. From administration standpoint, it is very important tool. So where you want to something called as where you want to schedule the jobs, where you want to monitor the jobs, where you want to establish a connection between SAP BW and SAP BODS, we need to have. And also like SAP ECC system and an SAP BODS, we need to have. So this is what actually happens. So all these things. So from administration standpoint, this is a very, very important tool. So from a development standpoint, this is a very, very important tool. Of course, this is adding the server, repository server, workbench, mass replication, licensing, and data services management console. So all these things comes under the combination of the administration actually. So we will see that what are the different roles so we have within the BODS the technology also. So hope you understand the explanation regarding the each and every product. So please raise your hand if you have any questions before I proceed further. So if you are clear, just say no. So I will be knowing it. We'll proceed further on. Okay. So these are all the components that will get installed on your system. Now we will try to understand what are all the different components and what is the process of steps in sequence, starting with the installation. And I will send you the installation document also. So where it has a screenshots of installation one by one, where you can go through that. So now, so what actually you have to understand here, that is very, very important. The first thing would be something like the process of steps. The process of steps would be something like install the BOBI platform. That is the first step, or IPS. Anything should be fine. Why this required? To make sure we get CMC. So once this is completed, actually, what is our next point? Install SAP BODS 4.2. So install an SAP BODS 4.2. That is the second step we need to consider here. And the third step is to create the local repository. So how to create a local repository with the repository manager? Fourth. Then register the local repository in CMC. That is the fourth step. After that, create the enterprise user in CMC. After that, so create the enterprise user in CMC, that is, we have to do that. And after that, so we have to grant rights for the user on the local repository, that we have registered previously. These are all the sequence of steps. They're very important actually. So after that, so what actually you have to do? Once all these steps are completed, then associate the local repository with the job server, where you are going to do in server manager. So once this is completed, then log in into BODS Designer. That's it. So these are all the steps you have to follow one by one in order to log in into the BODS Designer, actually, to proceed with the creation of your jobs and etc. So any questions in this process is considered, because this process is very important. Maybe as a SAP BODS developers, you don't get a chance to do all these things. So registration of local repository, create local repository, providing the grants on the user, so the create enterprise user and etc. These are all the steps normally will be performed by the SAP BODS administrator. So there are like two the profiles we have mainly in SAP BODS. One is called an SAP BODS administrator. So another one is an SAP BODS developer, the typical developer. He is going to develop the things. He is going to develop the jobs and organize the things. So administrator is going to do all these different types of activities. Now for SAP BABO platform and IPS, so I can give you a document for that. Even for the installation of an SAP BODS 4.2, I can give you a document. And so creation of a local repository is the first step that I told you earlier. The first step would be the creation of a local repository. First, we have to go to the start. First, click on the start here. So all programs. We have something called as a repository manager. Right. So you have to identify which repository you have to create, whether it is local or central or profiler. But by default, for very first time, if you are creating a repository, that repository would be by default local, because you have to first log into the designer. So a lot of people will have a wrong perception that we can log into the designer either with local or central or profiler. No. If you want to log into the BODS designer, you need to have a local repository created. With the help of a local repository only, you are going to log into an SAP BODS designer. Yes, I got a question here. What component do you need to install to get an SAP BODS repository manager from your developer PC? Got it. The component would be, the name of the component would be the data services repository manager only. This is the component actually. While doing the installation of an SAP BODS, so you have to uncheck or check it. That's it. So it will be installed on your system. It is a client component actually. Okay, this is the component itself. The SAP BABO repository manager itself is a component. It should be installed. And one more thing is, this component normally won't be given an access to the developers in general. The SAP BODS administrator will take care of it actually. So he will install it. So he will do on his PC, on his the administrator PC, and he will do the creation of a local repository. So that is what actually he will do. For all the developers, you will get only the BODS designer in general. It all depends upon the company to company, to landscape to landscape. But in general, the data services repository manager won't be installed on the developer's PC in a project. Okay, so we have something called a data services repository manager, that is local, that can be a central, that can be a profiler. But for the very first time, if you want to log into an SAP BODS designer, you have to create a local. That is what your first step would be. So now we will try to create one repository actually, and we'll proceed from there how to do that and all and everything. But before proceeding into the creation of a repository, so what we will do is, so I want to create this particular repository on the SQL server. So because this is a demo system, my SQL server is also there in my system itself. If the SQL server is not installed in the same system, if it is a physical system, then normally what we need to have is, so if it is a SQL server is there, so let us take an example. This is a SQL server, and this is what my PC, let us take an example, and this is what my what you call as SAP BODS repository manager. So repository manager, this is a repository manager, and let us take an example that this is a SQL server actually. This is a SQL server. (2008). And here I'm logging into this particular SAP BOD as a repository manager. I'm trying to create a local repository. When I say local repository, what actually happens here? Some tables will get created in the SQL server. That's it. In a database. So that is what actually happens. When I have given the username and password for the SQL server, and so if I have ODBC drivers in my system, because ODBC drivers are sufficient, and if you want to communicate with the SQL server, but if you want to communicate with Oracle, we can do it with the ODBC, and also the Oracle can be communicated with the TSN entries of Oracle client. So all these things are possible. So because SQL server is not required to install on your physical system. It can be on any remote system where they are on the same domain, same network, or at least they are in the forest network also very fine, but they should be in the same network. So from there, from the repository manager, you have to mention the ODBC to make sure that ODBC drivers are properly installed, and those ODBC drivers are properly applied. Therefore, for ODBC drivers only, the data will flow. Communication will happen with the SQL server to your SAP BODS designer. So that is what actually happens here. So if you have one SQL server, so if you have 100 PCs, that is fine. So you need to have only what you call as the ODBC driver should be fine. So let us take an example that this is another PC. Let us take an example that. So I'm referring to one more PC. What is that PC here? See here, this is one physical system, one developer system, another developer system, another developer system. Let us take an example. Okay, so let us try to understand the landscape. So very, very important. So these are all the different landscapes. So I have different PCs we have. So these different PCs actually So text, this is developer 1, dev 1, I mean to say, and here something called as dev 2. Here we have to see that dev 2 here I have, and here I need to have something called as dev 3. I'm referring to the developers actually here. So dev 4, dev 5, and this particular SQL server will have SQL Server engine actually. This engine will have something called as a local repositories for each and every developer. Let us take an example that we have databases, you can say that. Okay. So here we have something called as 5 developers we have, and this is a SQL Server 2008 server, SQL Server 2008, and these databases for each and every developer, they have their own database, they have their own local repositories, something like this. This is what actually happens here. So this particular local repository is for the developer 1, and so if I say here, so this particular is for the developer 2. So similarly, this is for the what you call as developer 3. So similarly, we have something called as developer 4. Similarly, we have something called as the developer 5. something like that. So this is what actually happens. So this particular SQL Server 2008 will host all these databases, and for each and every developer will have their own database. I mean, so they have their own local repository. If developer one is logging into the local repository, and those local repository will store the work what developer one has did. If developer two will log into their local repository credentials, then he will see his own work, what he did previously. Similarly, the dev 3 and dev 4 and dev 5. So getting my point, guys? This is what actually the typical. So you will say that how actually the data will get stored of developer 1, developer 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. So developer 1 so will have the information stored in the respective database. That what actually the database will have, as I mentioned previously, the tables will get created in the SQL Server, and the tables will be updating with the information. Let us take an example that if he is creating one job, one workflow, one data flow, everything will get stored in the developer 1 respective database and the developer 2 respective database. And you will ask me where actually you are going to maintain developer 1's database, developer 2's database, and etc. etc. So while creation of a local repository itself, I'm going to give, so what is the username and what is the password? The username and password for each and every developer will be different. Maybe the same in some companies, because they want to maintain the Windows area authentication. Then so all the users in that group will be part of a developer. I mean to say will come under a group called BODS group. That is also possible. So it all depends upon the company to company. So this is how actually the local repository will help to distinguish the user to save its own respective work. And if you want to log into other local repositories, other users local repository also, that is fine. I mean to say, like, if developer 2 wants to see what actually the developer 1 has created, yes, you can log into this particular developer 1, but the developer 2 should have an access to see the developer 1's local repository. That will be maintained in the CMC, Central Management Console. So whether he has a right or not, and everything can be visible in the Central Management Console. So this is how the local repository will be stored and the respective things. So what we will do is, as a sample, we will try to create one local repository, and we will see that what are all the tables that gets created with the local repository, and so we will proceed from there. But till now, so do you have any questions? Have you understand the local repositories? So how actually the local repositories are helpful for you and everything? Yeah, so I have a question here. So if we have a multiple BODS developers, should we all be using central repository type? No, the central repository the concept is entirely different. So, so till now, so we have got like multiple what do you call as local repositories. So multiple local repositories. So text box. Okay, that is fine. Oh, sorry guys. Okay, so these are all the local repositories we have. Okay, so what happens if you have a central repository? So let us take an example of a central repository. Central repository. So I will be having one more repository diagram that I'm going to take up now. This is called as a central repository. Okay. So what is the relationship between your central to local? Okay. So let us take an example that these are all the locals. Okay. So all the local repositories will be communicated with the central like this. Like this. So all the local repositories will be in communication with the central. Okay. Who will do a communication? The developer will do a communication to the local repository to the central repository. So likewise, all the developers will have an access to your central like this. Okay, so all the developers will have an access to central. So they want to do. So they can communicate with central. So why they need a central copy? That is a very important point to understand here. They need an access to central because they want to share the information across the developers. So there are like several ways. When I say several ways, so if you take an example of a developer one wants to share some information to developer two. How he can do? Either he can send a mail, the code, or else he can save the code in the central repository. Developer 1 can save the central repository and the developer 2 can take it. That is one way of sharing. So whatever, all the work done by the 5 developers can be stored in the central repository. Central repository is not at all useful to log in to do your respective work. All the developers' respective work will be done in their respective local repository. That's it. The central repository act like a centralized location where it is going to share all the developers' information in there. So you will get a doubt whether all the developers' information will be automatically stored in the central repository. No. If developer 1 has created something, if he has to share, then he will share. He will upload to the central repository. If developer 2 wants to upload, he will upload. Developer 3 wants to upload, he will upload. 4 upload, 5 upload, something like that. So whatever they are going to upload, other guy will be able to read it, or he will be able to download it, or he can overwrite it. Even within the code upload and download also we have some security. So year by year the SAP BODS is getting more secured at each and every layer. Because in fact all the projects are very massive projects are depends upon the BODS now. So the central repository, local repositories get connected via local repository. I mean to say the developer 1 will do the activity, physical activity of connecting the local repository and the central repository in their respective local repository. Okay, so getting my point? Okay, so are the local repositories are created on the same server as the central repository? Yes, we can create as many central repositories on the local repository. So, because after all, central repository itself is a database. That's it. Because the SQL Server is a database engine, it can have hundreds of databases in it. I mean, it's a schemas in it. But central repository is also one of the schemas. That's it. You can maintain the the central repository in the same SQL Server. we can do that. Not a problem at all. So just we are giving a naming convention as local and central, the way they are behaving. But everything as a physical, I mean to say like as for the visualization purpose, the central repository is also a database and local repository is also a database. Even the profiler repository is also a database. So we are creating a databases. We are storing some information in that so that while retrieving or while uploading, so we need to have some a handful of information so that we can whenever you want you can upload, whenever you need you can download, something like that. That is possible. Okay, so that is all about the central and the local. And because we have discussed these two, so what we will do is, so I will also discuss regarding the profiler. Right. So the profiler is also a database. That's it. The profiler is also a database, but so whether it is a central repository, whether it is a local repository, or whether it is a profiler repository, these are all different databases in the same server. But what is the information that we have in that database is very important. That's it. In the profiler repository, so you will have all the statistics of your profiling, data quality statistics like percentage of null values, percentage of an etc. etc. In the central repository, you will have the version control, so you will have labels, you will have versions and etc. etc. In local repository, whatever you have created, jobs, projects, workflows, data flows, transformations, custom functions, variables, parameters, substitution parameters, and everything would be there in the local repository. Okay, even the central repository also will have, but version control, the sharing, the capabilities, and everything will be there in the central repository. We will see more about a central repository whenever we are going to discuss a topic called multi-user environment, where how the actual code will get migrated from one environment to other environment. How to do that? That is what actually happens here. So did I answer your questions, the Chandra and Meena? So guys, like, do you have any questions before I jump on to the next topic? Okay, good. So guys, like, I need just a 5 minutes break actually. So I need to have some water and I will come back. Is that fine, guys? Okay, thank you.
Hey, Chandra, can you hear me?
Okay, guys. So thanks for being on hold. I'm back. So this is how actually the local, central, and profiler repository is going to be helpful for us. So for the creation of the different jobs, different job flow, for to get a different data quality statistics, the data profiler statistics, and etc. Now, so let me try to create one database and let me try to create one local repository. So, but actually everything is set up now. But as an initial explanation, we'll just try to create. But before that, creation of a local repository, we need to have an empty database at least that should be created. So for that, I will be logging into the SQL Server 2008, SQL Server Management Studio. So we have the something called as so I've just logged into the server, the SQL Server 2008. So we have something called the databases. They're all the databases for because hundreds of people are connecting to the SQL Server. So there are like a lot of local repositories for created. So let us see, like we will also create some database. Yeah, so I just clicked on the create new database. This is the sample database, you can say that. So this is Venkat. So it's a 1401. So they have just mentioned a name. So I'm just trying to create one database, the Venkat 1401 2015. This is one database actually. Okay, now I have created one database. This is a database. In the database, if I expand, I have a tables, but I don't have any tables other than system tables. Okay, but in other databases, if you see here, there's like a lot more. See here, AL underscore, A audit, AR underscore, these are all the tables that gets created automatically when you create a local repository. Actually, see here. Now we will try to create a local repository and we will see, we should see all these tables in your local repository called Venkat 1401 2015. Now I'm trying to log in into, okay, so let me copy the name instead of typing every time. So copy. And I'm trying to create a local repository now, and where actually your database is residing currently. So it's in SQL Server, like this. What is your database server name to communicate? So mine is a client, is a server name. What is the database name? This is what my database name, in which I have my empty database. And what is the username? My username is something like an SAP HANA 9 and the respective password. Now I just click on create. See here what it is saying, verifying repository, importing objects, adding data quality. So whatever, like the transformations, whatever the pre-built programs, whatever the variables, inbuilt variables. So all those different things. See here, it is adding some address cleanse for USA address cleanse, global cleanse. See here, it says that the local repository was created successfully. So earlier we have seen a empty database, Venkat 14/01/2015. Now I will go to the SQL Server and just click on refresh. Now see here, I could see a lot of tables. Like this. See here, AL underscore history. If I just select, because we don't have any data now currently, right? So we don't have a data here. But normally, what is the data we have? Let me log into another. So let us see. So one more. So AL underscore history. I'm trying to log into another local repository that is already there and that is functional. So I just want to show you what are all the entries we have. That's it. So AL underscore history, we don't have here. So column profile, we don't have it. Yes, we have AL underscore history. If you see here, they have created one job, J underscore transforms query, JS underscore SQL. So what is the server name? So what I'm trying to tell you here is, so these are all the tables will get created, okay, automatically on your system whenever you are going to create a local repository. These local repository tables will get filled up. It depends upon the developer activity in the local repository. So that is what actually happens here. That is what actually you have to understand. These are all the tables. These tables will get filled up depends upon the developer activity. Developer activity means, so if he has created like, so maybe thousands of jobs. So all the jobs information will be stored here. So what is the time he has stored it? See here, on which system he has stored it. So all the system, all the information, what type of job he created. See here, batch job. If it is a real-time job, it is a real underscore type. So all these different informations actually, so you are going to capture automatically by the BODS into this particular table. That's it. So once these particular tables are filled up automatically, so whenever you're trying to retrieve, the BODS will check in and it will get the information from this local repository. So hope you understand. So how the tables are get created and all and everything. Right? So please say yes in the chat so that I will proceed further. Thank you. Yes. And now we have created the local repository. So what is your next step? So let me open our standard steps. What we have created the local repository with the repository manager. So register the local repository in the CMC. Now let's log in into the CMC Central Management Console. The Central Management Console. So where is that? Yes, this is here. Login into the Central Management. HANA @234. Yes. Now I'm able to log in. Okay. So whenever I'm going to install a SAP BABO platform, so this window will come up in the CMC. And whenever you are going to install a data services, after installation of an SAP BABO platform or IPS, then the data services tab also will be shown in the Central Management Console. Central Management Console, I repeat, the Central Management Console is an administration tool of a BABO platform. But in order to administrate our SAP BODS also, we need to have a CMC. Okay, so in order to get a CMC, I have two options. Either I can go for the BIBO platform or I can go for the IPS. Because if you are looking for a reporting solution with BO, you can go for the BIBO platform. So if you are not looking for BIBO, or if you are just looking for a CMC component, go for the IPS. So that is also possible. Okay, so data services is a tab that you are able to see. Just click on the data services. So here you would see what are all the local repositories got registered. Here, these are all the local repositories. We have some central repositories, we have some profiler repositories. See here, profiler, local, non-secured, central, and secured center. Two types of central repositories are also there. Okay, so now what we have to do, we have to register our own local repository. That is what actually you have to do. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go to the manage, configure the repository. I will say that so Venkat 14/01/2015, that is what I did. What is your database? My database, of course, SQL Server. What is the database name, server name? That is client. This is what my database name even. Whether it is a Windows authentication? No. HANA 9. Is the profiler repository? Yes or no? Because I'm creating a local repository and I've just registered in the local repository. So this is not a profiler repository, right? That's the reason why specifically it is mentioned that it is not a profiler repository. Just click on the test connection. Successfully connected to the repository and simply save. That's it. That's it. So now, so I have just simply created actually one a local repository. I have just registered. I have just mentioned the local repository details here. That is what I did. That's it. Venkat 14/2015. That is type of local. It is a version 4.2 Microsoft SQL Server, and the server is client. Database host. The name is client. That's it. Now, so on the other hand, what actually you have to do, you have to create a local, you have to create a CMC enterprise user. See here, create a enterprise user in the CMC. That is what the next step. In order to create a user, what you have to, you go to, so you have to log in into the users and groups and right click here. Just create a new user. That's it. So when I create a new user, so we have whether it is a concurrent user, named user, these are all different stuff actually. Username and password and all and everything you can click on cancel here. So this is what actually happens with the creation of a user. So we already have a user created. What is the user? So SAP HANA 9 actually. Okay. So till now I'm just doing all my activities with that user only. So SAP HANA 9, he is a user. Okay, he is already created in when it is modified. So when it is modified, how it is modified? Because so recently today I have modified it. So that's the reason why the date modified is showing as SAP HANA 9 date modified. So this is what actually happens with the user creation. Now the user creation is done. Now what I have to do? I have to make sure that grant user for the local repository that we have registered previously. So now go to the data services where actually I have that local repository. So you have to identify now. So local repository, right click, user security. So make sure that he is a user, SAP HANA 9, he is user, and he has the full control on this Venkat 14/01/2015. He has the full control or not? He is full control. Okay. Security is also done. To associate the local repository with the job server. So that is the last step of your configurations to follow. So now, so you have to log in into the server manager. So as I mentioned previously, the data services server manager. Yes. This is the server manager where this particular server manager will release its more number of al_engine.exes. Those exes will help you to execute your jobs so that the job will transform the data. The job will process your data from source to the target. So that is what actually happens here. From source to the target, the data will get transferred. So that is what actually happens in the data services server manager. So what you have to do is just configure it and click on add a server manager, and you have to add the respective, again, the same username and password of your local repository. So you have to remember the local repository username and password. You have to pass everything everywhere. Okay, so because the administrator of this particular system has didn't provided me access to add here, so that's the reason why we could not able to see it. Otherwise, we should be able to see an add, view or delete or sync with the repository and etc. So these are all the steps that you have to understand while the proceeding with the creation of the local repository, registration of the local repository in the central management console, and assigning the local repository to the job server, and yeah. So now, we have followed all the steps. Now we will try to log in into our data services designer, and let us see. So whether you're able to see our SAP HANA 9. So HANA. See here how actually the CMC is controlling the BODS. This username and password is created in the CMC. And we are trying to log in into this particular, the central BODS designer. And what I did actually, I have granted a full control on the Venkat 14/01/2015 to the SAP HANA 9 user. Now, see here, I could see Venkat 14/01/2015. So you will get it out. Why he is able to see all? Because the SAP HANA 9 user has an access to all the local repositories that got registered in the CMC. Okay, whatever the local repositories got registered in the CMC, all the local repositories will be shown here. Out of which, what you want to have, so where actually you want to log in, everything can be visible from the data services designer standpoint. So which local repository you want to have, just try to select that local repository and just try to log in. That's it. You can just click on and click on OK. It will ask you the password of your database username and password. Like earlier we have given the password, right? Username and password. That password it will prompt. Now, so we have logged into your data services designer with the local repository. See here, with the local repository called Venkat 1401-2015. That is what we actually did. Any questions till this point? Are you clear on this? Can I proceed further? Okay. Yes. So finally we are into the local repository. Oops. My laptop is charge is going to be down. Okay, just give me 1 minute, guys. Let me put my charger. 1 second. Okay, guys, I'm back. Now we are finally into the local repository. The local repository will have main interfaces to be considered here. The main interfaces are something like the project area. The project area is a place where so it will help us. This is the project area, and this is called as your local object library. And in the local object library, we have something called as the project, jobs, workflows, data flows, transforms, data stores, formats, and custom functions. These are all the things we have. I will expand a bit more. Science. See here. This is very important. Earlier, so we have created the local repository. So in the local repository, what is the information that it gets stored? In the local repository, it will store the project, it will store the job, it will store the workflow, data flow, transform, data stores, formats, and custom functions, and etc. So these will get stored in your local repository. Okay, this is all about the local object library. And this is what your repository, local repository, Venkat 1401-2015. So in fact, you can say that the local repository is the front end of your local repository. The local repository will be there in the SQL Server database engine, right? So whatever you see here, those will be stored there, and whatever you store there, those will be shown here. So that is what actually happens. But so you cannot modify, or you cannot put any entry in the local repository. It doesn't mean that if I am going to include any records in the local repository, it will be shown here. But I mean to say, like, the front end of your local repository would be this local object library. Let me open an existing job. Oh, sorry. So because this is a very new a local repository, so till now we haven't created any particular job. So that's the reason why. So we could not able to see any particular jobs what we have currently on this particular local object library, on this particular local repository. So this is called as a project area. The project area, it will be something like the project workflows, data flows, and etc. That will be there, that we will see. And yeah, so this is the transforms, the basic the things we need to have, like what are the transformations we have. In fact, the majority of our course hours, we will dedicate our time to understand the different transformations, because the different transformations will help you actually to proceed with what you call as to convert the business logic into the technical work. So these transformations plays a very important role in the BODS development, in data migration, in replication, in consolidation, integration, wherever you go and what you do. So everything will be based upon these transformations. These transformations play a major vital role in your life. So similarly, we also have something called as custom functions, formats, data stores. So these are all the different components or objects of an SAP BODS. So in tomorrow's session, we will focus on for 10 to 15 minutes. So we will focus on different interfaces what we have. I will try to open an existing project, and I will try to explain you what we are discussing and everything. And later on, we will try to start with the slowly with the first job creation, workflow, data flow, and etc. That is the plan of action I have. But before that, I would like to confirm with you. So did you understand the today's session completely? Because the today's session may not be you may not be able to involve directly in the activities what you did, what I have explained today, but it will really help you to understand where actually and what is the dependency of the BODS on other technologies and something like that. So did you guys got some idea, like how the BODS and what are the steps involved, what we are trying to achieve here and all and everything? Okay, great. So I would like to wind up the session in another 2-3 minutes. So let's have the quick recap. So in today's session, so we have discussed something called as how actually the BODS will depends on SAP BA/BO platform. So what are all the components will the BA/BO platform will give us, and what are the server components, and what are the client components with BA/BO platform will give us, and out of which the CMC is an administration tool from the BA/BO platform. That administration tool actually will administrate the BA/BO platform. In addition to that, it will also administrate all the tools what I have mentioned in the slide. If you remember, I have mentioned one slide. In the slide, I have mentioned like how actually it is going to administrate. So what are the activities? It can be a security, storage, scheduling, and systems management, etc. How it is going to do a common management. So all these things that will be done with the SAP BI platforms, logical view. Okay. So once this is done, we have discussed the something called as local repository and the central repository and the profile repository. How important and how it is the developer will be able to log in into the central, I mean to say into the local repository, and so how actually the profiler and creation of a local repository, how the tables gets filled with the information. So we have already used one of the already used local repository database, and we could see some information in that. So all the information, so that will be part of your requirement. Okay, so we have also gone through that what are the sequence of steps that needs to be followed for like in order to achieve to the login to the SAP BODS designer. And also what are all the components we have, and these components, what are the responsibilities of each and every component, what each and every component will do. So all the things that we have discussed, and also how importantly depends upon your landscape, the CMC, so how you can achieve it, either from IPS or DABO platform. So hope you enjoyed the session. So do you have any questions, guys, before I wind up the session for today? So is the speed is fine with you guys, or you want me to slow down? Is the pace is fine, guys? Okay. Is it? Yeah. So because I thought it's a bit fast, so I just cut down. Okay, that's fine. So yeah, definitely I will go a bit fast. Okay. Okay. So thank you very much for your feedback, and so we'll proceed from there tomorrow. Okay. So thank you very much, guys. So hope you enjoyed the session, and tomorrow we will see. Most likely, and also like I will upload the documents, and so in the documents just try to understand you know, so what is an architecture of an SAP BODS, so how actually the landscape is designed, so everything, so and we will proceed from there. Thank you very much for your time. Bye.